Good evening from PLUGHITZ Studios in Largo, Florida. I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we are here with episode 556 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, for Sunday, March 29th, 2020. This show is a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. This week, there's an epic new publisher, a prankless online April Fool's Day, and some ad-friendly Google movies. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, on our live stream platforms, livestream.com, Mixer, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, or Facebook, on a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options, on the radio, or on our website, PLUGHITZlive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are now 3 ways that you can do that. The first is live Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern by going to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the studio. Give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. We always like to get that information. Or if you're in the New York area, on 88.1 WMLD radio, Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern. You can listen, or you can catch it on their website. Or, of course, you can always subscribe by going to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, the Piltch Point, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, and a whole lot more. And, of course, find all the ways that you can watch or listen. With that, Avram, how are you doing this week?
Well, I guess as well as anybody could be doing. You know,
Sure.
I mean, I'm very thankful that so far everyone in my immediate family seems to be staying healthy, and I still have a job, and so you know that puts me in a better place than a lot of people in
Sure.
right now. So I'm thankful for all of that. Obviously, it's a very nervous time for all of us. So really trying to focus on my work and on my tech projects as much as I can.
Yeah.
So as not to focus on other things that are around the world. It's not always easy.
Yeah, for sure. We haven't been, our little circle hasn't been quite as lucky. Our outer circle did have a death in the family yesterday. So it's for those of you who keep saying, but do you know anybody? You do know, because our outer circle had a death in the family this week. So that hit our group pretty hard. So
yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm, as most people here know, I live in the New York area.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we have a lot of people ill around here. I was on Facebook the other day, and a family friend of ours, like her elderly father is in the hospital with coronavirus right now. And, my parents are worried because my father's is exactly one of those immunocompromised people, but he has to have home health care aides, and my parents are worried about one of them bringing it into their house. And so yeah, it's a rough time for everyone. I'm glad I am able to be at home, because it is very rough out there, and obviously I encourage everybody else to be to stay safe.
yeah, and the CDC just announced recommended guidelines through the end of April. So
yeah,
so we're just getting started.
So it's actually, I guess, I don't know if this is like an unknown tip to people, but I just discovered this past week all the different ways you can get groceries delivered. There's Instacart,
Yep.
Which I used for the first time this week, and Amazon Prime I've used before, like Prime Delivery.
Prime Pantry.
But the problem, if you have a Whole Foods near you, But the problem is, all of the delivery times are booked.
Mm-hmm.
But some folks in my area gave me a tip, which is if you log on at midnight, you may be able to reserve a time.
Interesting.
So I will find out. So yeah.
Well, it's important. It's really important to note. Attention. It's important to note two things on the topic of Instacart. One, they are also being heavily inundated with orders, so much so that they contacted us and asked us to not advertise for them if we had any ads running. They were not looking for any more than organic growth right now. So that's a big deal. And two, there is a scheduled protest by the shoppers on the 2nd, I think. So
I thought it was the 30th, but
okay.
Yeah,
so tomorrow.
I read about that.
I knew it was the beginning or middle of this week. So tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see what that does, because obviously more than ever the shoppers have some bargaining control right now. So they might actually get some of what they're looking for. But it might take a couple of days of protesting.
Yeah. So it's rough times, and if you are looking for a webcam, it is still really difficult to get a webcam, as we discussed last week. I saw somewhere this week somebody selling a Logitech. No, I'm sorry, Newegg, not just somebody. Newegg, although it's a third-party vendor through Newegg, selling a Logitech C920 for something like $250.
Oh.
That, folks, is a $60 webcam.
Right. I was going to say, that's like 5x. That's incredible margin.
It's a hand sanitizer of tech.
It's a jerk move, but it's a heck of a margin. I have been regularly checking the GameStop website this week, and the numbers keep shifting. But I have found that our local GameStops tend to have at least a couple of the webcams in stock. I've been checking so much that they've started advertising them to me on Facebook. They're like, obviously you want a webcam, and it's clearly from us, so we're going to give you one of those "did you forget about this" ads. which is fun, because normally this time of year all of my Facebook ads are for the companies that we interviewed at CES, and for the most part they still are, but that's a fun little addition. Anyway, so like we said, we're kind of just at the beginning of this. There's some technological ways that you can kind of help with your social distancing. Even the CDC and the World Health Organization have put together a gaming program that they announced today. So they're really looking for our people to help everybody else kind of deal with this bizarre time of isolation. But our show for the last couple of weeks has been very, very inundated with these topics. This week, however, we have managed to kind of pull away from it a little bit. There will be a whole lot less of it, and so because we're looking to bring a little bit of normalcy in a time that is inundated with one topic.
I mean, you can get your coronavirus news anywhere, but let's talk about the tech stuff.
For sure, there's only one topic that's affected by this, but everything else is going to be back to normal. So, with that, let's talk about some tech news. This week's Nifty Gifties and F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, a tablet, an Xbox One, either S or X, or a myriad of other things like VR headsets, AR headsets, phones, and a whole lot more, they can all be found at the Microsoft Store. And remember, if you are a student or military, you get discounts on almost all of the products that are available. To find out more about that program and to find out about what products are available and any deals that are running, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. So speaking of Microsoft, we spoke a couple of weeks ago about well, first let's talk about a topic we're not going to talk about, which is also Microsoft related. We've talked about Clearview AI, which is the facial recognition software that police are using across the world to varying degrees of hatred. And Microsoft had some investment in a similar company as a startup that they found out that that's what they were up to. They decided that that technology is not up to their ethics, and so they will no longer be investing in that type of company. We have an article about that at PLUGHITZlive.com. But in other Microsoft news, Microsoft, HP, and Valve announced this week, stealth announced, because they didn't actually have an announcement. It just kind of happened. It showed up, and they pretended like it had always existed. They stealth announced a new VR headset. It doesn't have a name, but it definitely has a name. There's no way that it doesn't end up getting the name of the last one, the Reverb. So almost certainly it'll be a Reverb G2. There was a page on HP's website that kind of suggested that HP Reverb G2 would be the name of it. Now, we see these kinds of things all the time, right? We've seen all kinds of companies get into VR, but outside of Oculus, HTC, and Valve themselves with the Index, they've all been but this partnership here between HP, Microsoft, and Valve is being called by Valve, who just put out the Index, the new standard in VR. They are not talking a whole lot about details. There's no release date or anything, but the fact that it's Valve and Microsoft, so the Microsoft Windows MR stuff, which includes Steam VR, which is Valve, working together with one of the original Windows MR headset manufacturers for the new standard in VR, that could be a big deal.
Yeah, well, Microsoft has long wanted to be the standard in VR or be part of the standard in VR. They're wise to work with Valve because Valve actually has worked on some good stuff, whereas like the Vive
and the Index.
What are you... Right, the Vive and the Index, whereas the Windows mixed reality headsets have been kind of a disaster. So
the ones that were focused on the Windows MR, but the Windows MR ecosystem now includes Steam as a direct partner. So the Vive and the Index are both supposed to be able to take advantage of Windows MR now. So, but the things that were that batch, we all know what you're talking about. It was that batch of things, right? It was the one that the kind of crappy Samsung one was the best of the lot.
Right, exactly. And so like just the quality of the Microsoft, I mean, this is an area where it would be nice if Microsoft led. So So I think it would be, I think it's good that they're working closely with one of the two companies that really seems to get it when it comes to VR in Valve.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, outside of the fact that, Steam VR is kind of the marketplace, right? Because the Oculus stuff has mostly, other than the Samsung Gear VR, which we'll talk about in just a second, the Steam VR has been the go-to platform for everybody else, right? Because nobody else wants to interact with a mostly closed ecosystem like what Oculus was, as if it's gone. You'll understand in a second why my brain has it in the past tense. But Steam is the place for games, and it's the place for VR titles as well. And basically, any headset manufacturer can support Steam VR, so it makes sense that Microsoft and Steam, and Microsoft and Valve, who have a long-standing relationship because of PC gaming, it makes sense to me that they'd be working together to make a headset that works well across all things, which that totally makes sense to me. And with the new Half-Life game just coming out on Steam VR, now would be a great time to have the new standard in VR available. Or at least to capitalize on the news of Steam VR with the Half-Life title. But on the other hand, we've talked about how phone-based VR was a very short-lived and sad concept, and the only company who got any traction with it was Samsung with the Gear VR, and that probably has to do with the fact that most people who bought a Samsung Galaxy S8 or S8 Plus got one of the headsets for free if you bought it from Verizon or AT&T. Unfortunately, that was the last device that was supported. The 9 and 10 were not. The 20 is not. And I said 2 generations before the show. I guess that makes 3 generations, huh? Now that we are 3 generations out from official support, Oculus is officially no longer supporting the platform, which is why in my head Oculus was a past tense. So as of April 1st, which will not be a funny day if you have a Galaxy S10 or a Galaxy Gear headset, you will no longer be able to install apps. If you have them, they will continue to work until backend changes cause the apps to stop functioning, and you will no longer get updates. So that platform is officially closed, which kind of closes up the Oculus platform just to Oculus headsets at this point, right? I mean, I can't think of any other devices that are supporting that store now.
I guess not. So do you think any enterprising hardware hackers will do something with all these old Gear VRs?
Probably. Anytime so many things are out in the wild and just support just disappears, somebody in the open source community gets creative with it. It's almost a guarantee. What will happen? Who knows? They might create a secondary store, or maybe figure out how to port Steam stuff to it, which honest to God would be the most reasonable thing to do. If you could support Steam VR stuff on a Galaxy phone, then you'd be all set.
I want to figure out how to make a Gear VR work with a QCat, so we can have the ultimate in outdated tech and non-supported tech working together.
Are you aware that I have a case of those here?
No, I was not aware you had a case of QCats. But next time you should bring one on the air as show and tell. So we should probably explain to the audience, because very few people know what a QCat is or was.
It was It was a company that produced a barcode scanner. Originally, it started as a barcode scanner that magazines could put these special barcodes, magazines, newspapers, soda cans, could either use existing UPCs or put special QCAT barcodes in their publications, on their products, and when you scanned it on your computer, it would take you to the website. Now, why you wouldn't just print Coke.com on your can is beyond me, but it eventually migrated into this unbelievably convoluted set of cables that you could put on your TV off of like your cable box. They could listen to the audio and pick up certain cues from ads that would then, in the same software, track all the ads that had run that had the QCAT audio watermarks in them, which was even weirder because this was the late 90s, early 2000s. Who had a computer anywhere near their television? It was just the most baffling product. Yeah, that's not in here. At least not within range. I think it's in the closet.
Yes.
When I started with Radio Shack was just after the end of the QCats, and I mean Radio Shack had bought the company thinking that it was going to be a big thing, which was the first of many bad decisions that ended us with the company going away. But I got in just at the end of that, and so we had cases of them in our stores. And I've used the barcode scanners. There's drivers, USB drivers for the barcode scanners to use them just as barcode scanners. So I took a whole case of them. They're around here somewhere. Anyway, yeah, it'd be fun to figure out how to put a bunch of dead technology. I've also got there was that IP radio that was on those little touch screens. I can't remember the name of the company, but the logo was purple. I've got like 8 of those receivers around here somewhere too. The amount of weird old technology that's here in our offices is bizarre. Anyway, and the Gear VR is, I guess, officially going into that list. Yeah, going into that collection. So, so a little bit of ups and a little bit of downs for VR this week, with the Gear VR officially unsupported, and this new HP headset, new standard in VR. Can't wait to find out more about it. It says it's coming soon. There's already a listing on Steam for it. So if you're looking for the small amount of information, there's a short video and a couple of photos and stuff. There's a link available at PLUGHITZlive.com under the article where you can see a whole lot more information about it. A whole lot more. I mean, we have very little information. The website has slightly more. But that'll be the place where you can put in like an alert when they put new information. You can get an alert. So I can't wait to see what it is. Because, I mean, HP and display technology, and then Microsoft and Steam for VR, it kind of all goes together. So, we'll see. This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. When you're online, you want to obfuscate your usage to kind of hide your behaviors from Google and Facebook, your ISPs, and give yourself some other protections as well, plus the ability to report that you're somewhere else. And PureVPN is a great way to do that. They've got deals running all the time. If you sign up for 2 years, you can get a huge discount. Plus, there is a full month money-back guarantee. So if you try it and you go, you know what, not for me, no problem, you can get your money back. And you can find out about all of that by going to piltchpoint.live/purevpn. All right. So last year we talked about a build that you guys did at Tom's Hardware, and I see that we've gone kind of the other way with it this year, right?
Sorta. So we periodically do PC builds. We really aim to do about one a month, but sometimes it's hard to get in all the parts we need to do some of these special builds. The next build we're going to do, by the way, and I'm I'm open to suggestions. Is we want to do the lowest cost but best quality streaming desktop, one that's really good for doing broadcasting, uh, of shows like this one. Uh, but but the one that we just built and put up an article about is what we call the RG Baby.
I love that name.
RGB Baby. Because last year we did one called the RG Beast. And the RG Beast was the most RGB desktop that you could build. And we used a giant case to fit all the RGB components in it. And it was huge and bulky. And so we decided, what if we try to fit as much RGB as we can into a mini ITX case? For those not familiar, mini ITX case is the smallest standard case that you can get to when you're building a desktop. So we set out to see how much RGB we could fit in to the RG Baby. And here's what we used. So first of all, we wanted this to be a good performing desktop, that can play games. So we did not just put, any old processor in it. We went with AMD. We went with an AMD Ryzen 9 3900X CPU, which is very close to top of the line. And we went with an Asus ROG Strix B450i gaming motherboard. Now, the interesting thing is it has some RGB on the motherboard. Obviously, CPU itself cannot have RGB. The things that did have RGB on them, which were many, were the RAM was HyperX Fury RGB RAM. But because it has very bright lights on it. We had 3 SSDs. We had our main M2 SSD, which was a Patriot Viper VPR 100, which is a tiny M2 style SSD, which is like the really small, chip size, but still has on the heat spreader RGB lights. And then we had 2 of the most beautiful storage drive that you can buy. Not the most performant, the most beautiful. And those are the T-Force Delta Max SATA drives. I mean, the performance is fine, but they're SATA drives. So they're not, they're not going to win any performance medals. But they look like, and these are from the company Team Group T-Force Delta Max SSDs. They look like an LED screen on top of it. Now, they are not actually screens. They are RGB lights, but they look so real. Even now, when I look at it, I think it must be a screen that's showing an RGB picture. So it's pretty amazing. For fans, we went with Corsair's ML120 Pro RGB fans because those are really quite good, and Corsair has a lot of good RGB stuff. For our PC cooler, we went with a Corsair H100i all-in-one water cooler. And for our case, this is a case a lot of people probably haven't heard of, even if you've heard of all the case brands. It was a Jonesbow A4, which is from a small Chinese company, and it costs about $200, and it's a really tiny mini ITX case. And the reason we went with it is it has glass on both the left and right side, whereas most only have it on the left side. So it gives you more glass panels, that can really show off, that allowed us to show off the SSDs on one side while the motherboard and associated stuff was on the other side. Uh, so, uh, so anyway, uh, that and for our video card, we use a Zotac Gaming GeForce RTX 2080 Extreme because Zotac makes the smallest cards on the market, or at least some of them, and so easy to fit into a small case. So this whole RGB build was, had a price of $3,061.03 based on pricing of when we published it the other day. Now, what we learned in building this was it is really hard to fit all this stuff and particularly RGB stuff into a tiny case. The order in which you put things in really matters. And some things you may want to put and not be able to put. We really wanted to put in an RGB cable called the Lian Li Strimer, which is a power cable that itself is RGB that runs from your power supply to your motherboard, and there just wasn't room because that cable is thicker because it has the RGB lights for us to do it. So all told, we obviously had a lot of RGB for the small case, and we got plenty of performance out of our combination of 2080 graphics and AMD 3900X CPU. So it's obviously a system that performs really well, but I think it obviously was able to do things like hit 60 FPS on 1080p on most benchmarks, and even 30 at 4K. So powerful system, not cheap, but it shows you what's possible where you can get some artistry even into the smallest cases. You don't need to have a giant case to have a really attractive build. And why does any of that matter? Well, if all you care about is performance, then it doesn't matter. Sure. RGB doesn't matter. But a lot of people, especially when they're building a desktop, they want something that looks beautiful. It's an art statement. It's a personal statement. I don't know if it's a fashion statement. They want it to look beautiful. And so for a lot of people, that means RGB lighting. And so this build really shows what's possible. I encourage people to check out the article, which has lots of pictures and a lot more details, which is on tomshardware.com in the top nav. Look for the RG baby.
First of all, I love the name. That's such a perfect pairing to the beast. But I can attest to when you build a desktop, wanting it to be an art piece, a fashion statement. The case that I have, obviously the machine that's in here is a little different because nobody sees it. But the machine that's in we're focused on performance in here. But the machine that I have in my office, I put it in a Razer case, obviously, I decided to kind of lean into the Razer thing, and so there's a lot of green RGB throughout it. It works out well because Razer's color is green, our color is green, so it kind of went well. But yeah, I put time into, even though the majority of it is not visible because it's in a desk. I put time in to make sure that everything matched. It was all green. It glows nice, and so I understand.
A nice desktop is functional art.
Yeah,
a nice desktop is functional art, and there are people out there, just for folks who are not familiar with desktop building, who will do case modding where they'll take their computer and they'll make it look like something. So, they'll cut it up and make it look like a helicopter or something. Or I've seen one that was actually a beer dispenser. So, putting a few RGB lights in is the least you can do.
Indeed. Interestingly, to go back to the Radio Shack topic from last segment, the first store I worked at was one of the slowest stores in our district. And Sundays, if we had 5 customers, it was a busy day. And so Sundays became like messing around days. And I can't tell you how many times we did custom case mods to PC cases on Sundays when we had nothing better to do. So it's fun. There's all kinds of interesting stuff you can do. My brother is in the middle of a Star Wars scene within this giant case that he has. Probably the case is so big that probably both of your kids could fit in it. Like it's.
Oh, I really got to see a picture of that.
I'll make sure he sends me one for you. But it's huge, and I cannot wait to see. He's got a thing. He's drawn it all out. He's got a plan, and it's ridiculous. So yeah, like you say, some RGB lights in a pre-made case is the least you can do. So this is up now with, I imagine, tons of photos, right?
Yes, lots of photos, lots of detail, different components that you can get to do what we did. So check it out on tomshardware.com.
Very cool.
RG baby.
And obviously, a lot of times we talk about functional things, and it's fun to talk about the creative, the artistic, the silly, the things you can do just to. Especially right now, right? Just to be able to get some creativity out while you've got less going on than normal. So definitely appreciate it. Cannot wait to see the photos and compare them to the RG Beast and see the pair of them together, because that'll be fun. And as always, I appreciate it, and I can't wait to see what we talk about next time. This week's Extra Life in F5 Live is proudly powered by Razer. All the accessories you need to up your game on PC or console are available from Razer. Whether you're looking for a new keyboard and mouse like we use here in the studio, you're looking for a controller for your PC or your console, maybe a great gaming headset, or even a full system like the Razer Blade 15, Razer has got it all. And to see all of their products and to see the deals that are running, you can go to f5live.tv/Razer. So we've talked over the last year, 15 months technically, about the interesting change happening within Epic Games. For many, many years, Epic was known for being the producer of the Unreal Engine. And then they accidentally hit their stride with Fortnite, and that kind of changed the company in a significant way. And they've started to use the money that they've gotten from Fortnite in new and interesting ways. The first, of course, which is why 15 months, was in December of 2018. They announced the Epic Games Store, which came out to challenge Steam as the dominant player. They give free games every month. They do a lot of exclusives. They focus a lot on smaller indie or developing studios. and work to help bring those games to market, as well as bring new fans to those titles. The only place that they haven't really been has been on the publishing side of the industry until this week. The company officially announced, there's been some rumbles in the industry, but we tend to wait until we have at least some hard evidence. And this week, Epic announced the Epic Games Publishing division of the company, which is focused on the earlier stage. The Epic Games Store brings a finished game to the public. Epic Games Publishing will help bring games to that state. So if you're looking at small indie developers, or those developing studios, they can apply to be part of the Epic Games Publishing, and what they get is up to full funding of their game development, plus once costs are recouped, at least 50% of all future profit, which is a pretty big deal. And they get to keep 100% rights to their intellectual property, which has started to gain some traction in the industry, but this is the first time that we've seen a whole publisher say, everybody keeps their IP. We don't want to own your game. We don't want to own your characters. That is all you. We're just going to help you bring it to market. And the CEO of the company said that these were the terms that they wished existed when they were early stage. And so they wanted to use their recent good fortune to bring some of those capabilities to studios and little indie developers that they didn't have when they were getting started. I think that's pretty cool. And, it kind of goes in line with the game store, right? Their percentage is way lower than Steam or Google or Apple or, any of the other places where you can buy games. The Epic Game Store is way less. You get to keep more of the money. And so this kind of goes along with that same business model. I think that's kind of cool. What do you think?
So if you do this, if you're a small indie developer and you have Epic publish your game, does that mean it can't be sold through the Steam store?
Mm-mm. Nope. In fact, with the three big names that they announced that have already signed on for Epic Games Publishing, you have got Remedy Entertainment, which is best known for Max Payne. You've got Play Dead, which is known for Limbo. And you've got Gen Design, which is best known for Shadow of the Colossus, all of which are big PC and console titles. And Epic does not want to create a weird monopoly. They want to continue to help publish to PlayStation, to Xbox, to Steam, to the Microsoft Store, wherever you want the content to go, it can. Obviously, there's probably going to be incentives to do one of the 6 or 12 month Epic Game Store initial exclusives, because there have been incentives for non-publishing partners already. So it would make sense that there'd be a better incentive for those who are in the publishing division, because your costs are going to be lower, right, to get to market. So you're going to recoup your costs faster, which would mean that you can get to that profit sharing a lot faster, on top of everything. But they're not trying to limit the capabilities of their developers. If you want it to be Shadow of the Colossus, you want it to be a PlayStation exclusive, and they can help you sign that contract, let's go. So they're good. So they are officially a cross-platform publisher. It's a pretty big deal. It would be, and it's it's like Valve, right? Left 4 Dead and Portal were available everywhere, so same kind of idea. I think.
Well, good. Anything that encourages more indie developers to develop new and exciting games, I think is great for the industry. So I'm glad to see Epic is doing this.
Absolutely, because I mean, if you go back to Limbo, right? That game was crazy, and that was done with basically no people, very very little funding, and I believe, I know at one point it was, and I believe it stayed that way to the end of the 360. I believe it was the highest grossing indie game on the 360. So, and it's if you've never played it, we talked about it years ago when it came out. If you've never played it, play it. It is worth a couple of bucks. You can still play it on the Xbox One. It is the weirdest puzzle game you will ever play. It is all of the dark of Gladys without any of the humor. It is the strangest puzzle game you will ever play in your life, and it is worth all of the bizarre. So yeah, and if Microsoft hadn't been encouraging and helping indie developers in the early days of the 360, you wouldn't have had a game like Limbo. And so more companies with funding being able to help more indie developers in the way that Microsoft helped get Limbo into people's hands, like you said, can only be better. So I'm excited about this. Obviously, we'll have to hear from some studios that give it a shot over the next 12 to 24 months. We'll hear some experience stories from studios who have signed on with Epic to see if it lives up to the hype or the hope. But something tells me it will. So fingers crossed. This week's news from the tubes and F5 Live is proudly powered by RiffTrax. Make fun of movies or let these guys do it for you. Mike Nelson, Bill Corbett, and Kevin Murphy, the former stars of Mystery Science Theater 3000, are back and doing what they do best, creating commentaries for Hollywood blockbusters and B-movie oddities like Lovely But Deadly. The way it works is for a couple of dollars, you download the MP3, play it along with your DVD, Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, wherever the movie happens to exist, and laugh. From time to time, they do live events. They theoretically have 2 of those scheduled for this year, but obviously we'll see how that goes. And those live events also end up making it available for sale later on. You can see all of those and a whole lot more, including feature films and short films, by going to f5live.tv/rifftrax with an X. So, this is that one story we warned you about that was going to be semi-related, but the internet has long been known for embracing the oddity that is April Fool's Day, and the poster child for that strange behavior has been Google. They have had some of the strangest pranks and product announcements over the years, and they've had real product announcements, tending to announce real products that in the moment sound like pranks. I think the best example ever was at a time when free email accounts gave you 25 or 30 megabytes of storage. Google announced Gmail on April Fool's Day and said that they were giving a gig of storage and that the storage amount would increase over time. And everybody was like, ha ha ha, very funny. Oh, that one's real. But there were the psychic tulips last year and all kinds of other weird things over the years. But this year, Google has announced that in an attempt to not create an atmosphere of confusion, they will not be doing any of their pranks this year. Now, my first thought, of course, was it sure seems like this would be the year where we could use the humor more than ever. But it's not Google that they're really worried about. Because when Google makes an announcement like the psychic tulips, which, if you didn't see it, it was a flower pot that allowed you to communicate with your tulips. It was so weird. Anyway, Google's stuff is usually pretty obvious, and they're a giant corporation, and a very small amount of research can help you pinpoint the ones that are nonsense and the ones that are Gmail, right? But the whole internet tends to participate, and Google was hoping that by making this announcement early enough that other companies would follow suit, especially smaller companies whose announcements may not be as easy to detect. And in a time where confusion is kind of the norm, they were looking for a way to limit that, because not all of them are the McPickle burger, right? The big companies are easy to spot. No, McDonald's did not launch a burger that was all pickles, and we all know that. But a smaller company whose intentions are different might be harder to spot. And so Google made this announcement. It's a weird thing because they've been doing it essentially for 20 years. And to take this year off will be a little strange, especially for internet tradition. But when you listen to their reasoning, it kind of starts to make sense. It's sad because humor is it's few and far between right now. But I think I get it. I think I can see where they're coming from.
You don't want to be seen as tone deaf.
Right.
I don't think it's about confusion. Maybe there will be some confusion somewhere. You certainly don't want to see people joking about things like a cure or a treatment
right
for the virus. But I don't think Google would ever do that.
No.
Even for something so serious. But I think the idea is, this is, it looks bad to be joking around at this time. So I get it. The greatest April Fool's tradition, which I think is probably going to be over anyway because the website has been subsumed, is the Think Geek one, where Think Geek would put up all of these like weird fake products. And then a lot of them, actually, there was such demand afterwards that they made real, like the Tauntaun sleeping bag, I think is one, right? So Think Geek, having been bought by GameStop, and then they shut down the thinkgeek.com website, used to, was the place to find themed special, unique themed merchandise for, geeky people.
Sure.
Video game stuff, sci-fi stuff, computer stuff, cool stuff. And if GameStop were smart, instead of changing ThinkGeek into GameStop, they would have changed GameStop into ThinkGeek. But because that has a future, whereas packaged games do not. Yeah. But anyway, I think that wouldn't have happened anyway this year because they closed down the ThinkGeek website. So, that's sad, but totally understandable. I don't think anyone is in a mood for deliberately funny, misleading headlines.
Yeah, and it's the misleading headlines, and in particular, Google wasn't worried about themselves because, again, Android having a setting that allows you to install a physical screen cleaner. Of course not. No, nobody believed that was real. It's the other companies that may not, that may walk a closer line to reality than Google ever does, or McDonald's does, or Burger King or ThinkGeek. Well, with ThinkGeek, everything they suggested could have been real because of how bizarre their product mix was. I think the Captain Picard tea set was originally an April Fool's joke that became real, and I have. But it's the companies that may walk closer to that line that they were a little worried about and decided to sacrifice their own funny in favor of trying to push that line further away. And so I can appreciate that. And it's different than the big meme thing that's going on right now, right? And by the way, I officially understand why children sing and dance to a song about the bubonic plague now, because we are literally living through the exact same situation online with coronavirus memes. So I had always thought that was strange. I get it now. But those things are so obviously goofy, whereas an April Fool's joke is intended to be closer to the line between reality and fantasy by definition. So, yeah, I get it. It's also important to note, please don't do your own dumb things. So on top of the please don't joke that you're pregnant, joke with somebody that you're breaking up with them, the general tone deaf things, please don't joke about this topic either, because it is even worse than any of those other ones. So follow Google's lead and just kind of sit this one out this year. This week's DRM Not Included in F5 Live is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. You get free shipping, sometimes same day, probably not right now, but you also get a lot of other things to help you right now. You get free music streaming with Amazon Prime Music. You get free TVs, movies, documentaries, and a whole lot more with Amazon Prime Video. You get free video games with Twitch Prime. You also get one free subscription every month, so you can help financially support the content creator of your choice at no extra cost to yourself. You can subscribe to PLUGHITZ Live or any other Twitch streamer. There's also Amazon Prime Pantry, which we were discussing earlier on, which gives you food delivery to your house in certain markets. And a whole lot more. If you're not currently a Prime subscriber, we've got a 30-day free trial for you. Plus, we have quick links to help you find all of these features and a whole lot more, and all of that is available by going to f5live.tv/prime. Obviously, our DRM Not Included over the last year or so has been inundated with streaming service options, everything from Peacock to Quibi. It seems like every time we turn around, somebody else is trying to get into the market or trying to make a name for themselves in the market, and this week is no different. We all know that that Google has video services. The things, kind of all the services have fallen under the Google Play name, have struggled to find adoption. Google Play Music had so much trouble that they have given it to YouTube, and it's called YouTube Music, and Google Play Music will be ushered out sometime this year. There's newsstand and magazines, which most people don't even know exists. But Google Play Movies is one that people use, not quite to the level of Amazon or iTunes, but they've had some success. But they have decided that because it's licensed content, they're going to try what some of the other licensed content services have found success in. Companies like Crackle or IMDb or Pluto or Tubi, which are services that Avram talked about a couple of weeks ago. Suggestions from inside the latest APK show that there is a section for free ad-supported movies from Google Play Movies. Now, they're not just testing the waters with this from what it looks like. It looks like if and or when it launches, again, it is a hidden feature. Google has not responded to comment on the topic in the same way that our last APK breakdown from Instagram was confirmed. But it looks like there will be several hundred titles available at launch if this service comes to pass. And it makes sense, when it comes to original content. Amazon, Netflix, Hulu have kind of made their mark. When it comes to licensed content, Crackle, IMDb, Tubi, Pluto have definitely shown that ad-supported works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think they've shown it works. I have no idea whether they're making money or not.
Fair enough.
Works for me as a viewer. I don't know what their bottom line is, but I think obviously Google must see money in this because others are doing it, and they wouldn't do it if they didn't think they could make some money. Maybe they also see an opportunity to upsell. Maybe it's like, okay, if we get you in watching these things ad supported, then we can try, and then we have you, and maybe we could try to push a premium tier to you.
Yep.
So it makes sense.
And if you look at
sense for them to do,
look at Hulu, right? Hulu started with a free tier that was massively ad supported, but was lacking the most recent episodes. I think the two most recent episodes were missing from the free tier, and then they had their first paid tier, and then they added the commercial free option, and they eliminated the free one because people started paying for the service. Maybe that's the path that Google is hoping that they can build here before they have to rebrand another service under the YouTube name.
Yeah, whatever, they do what they can, right? I just hope it's not the same stuff on every free channel. I hope it's not the same stuff as on IMDb TV and Tubi, and I hope there's some variety.
Yeah.
One thing I really like to see, you always are seeing like the same sort of you're always seeing a lot of movies that are fairly recent. I would love to see somebody do this more with old movies and old shows.
Yeah.
Like really old. I'd like to see more sort of classic movie, classic shows, stuff from like nothing before 1990, maybe nothing before 1980 or something like that. Like, give me more old, give me more classic stuff, because everybody's got reruns of. Everybody's got like some movies from like 5-10 years ago.
Right.
It would be really interesting, but you don't see a ton of like here in I don't know if you guys have it in Florida, but we have I think a syndicated cable network called MeTV, which shows like all kinds of old shows, right? Like I would love to see that more of that happen with some of these free services. And you don't see, I think, enough of it. So yeah. I don't know. It would be interesting to see if there was more a more interesting piece of mix of content.
Sure. Yeah. I actually discovered, I think it was this week, it might have been the week before, that Amazon Prime had Carol Burnett show. And so, did I get lost in that? And it made me wish for more of that. Yeah, I can go watch the Brady Bunch because that's kind of anywhere, but it'd be a lot of fun to have, some of the other stuff. Only like 5 or 6% of the I Love Lucy episodes are available for streaming. It would be cool to see, that whole collection. Why is it only 5 or 6%? Who knows? Why is it episode 1 and 12 of season 2? Who knows? But yeah, I'm totally with you. I'd love to see some more older stuff, and if I could get it for free on something like this or Crackle or Tubi or something like that, all the better. Especially now, as I'm watching a whole lot more stuff that I've not watched before, So, obviously we have no idea if and or when this feature will come to pass. It is a hidden feature, which, since it's in the public APK, just like we talked about with Instagram, it likely means that the feature is in a very limited private testing, either internally or with a small group of external testers. And that means that it may or may not see the light of day. Hopefully it will, but we have no way of knowing that for sure. But fingers crossed that we'll see this come to pass, because this kind of service doesn't usually go exclusive on stuff. So you're unlikely to see it block you from seeing the same content on another service if you're already using it. And that's, I always prefer that. The competition gives, some interesting variation. And like Avram said, maybe we'll see some stuff we've not seen before. So it would be nice. And that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. Mixer has been absolutely on fire tonight. So thank you to those of you who joined us over there. If you missed any of the show and would like to see or hear all of it, you can always go to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe, and you can see this and all of our other shows. If you are listening on the radio, you're listening through podcast on YouTube or something like that, and you would like to join us live in the future, Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us, and there you can chat with us on Mixer, on Twitch, on YouTube, and give us your input on the topics, or you can tell us that we smell like pineapple, which is, I think, the strangest comment that we've received in the live chat ever. Still not sure what to do with that information. Anyway,
I would like to smell like pineapple, so I appreciate the compliment.
Fantastic. Well, there you go. It was accepted by Avram as a compliment. Good on ya. Anyway, there's lots more content available. We've got interviews going up every day from our CES live show. We had Dell on. I think it published today, talking about the Latitude 9510, which is kind of a companion piece to talking about the XPS 15 last week, or 13 last week, and a whole lot more. So definitely check it out, PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. And I guess with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you guys back next time. Ciao.